Are you a business owner looking for real advice and input? You're in the right place. From concept to launch to growth, funding, and beyond. Welcome to Startup Hustle with your hosts. One once sold a business for $150 million. The other, the author of $1 Million Bedroom. Here are your hosts of Startup Hustle, Matt DeCoursey and Matt Watson.
And we're back. Another episode of Startup Hustle. Matt DeCoursey here with Liderman Duin, who will be sitting in for Matt Watson today. Liderman, what's up?
Well, thank you so much for the invitation. Just glad to be here.
Yeah, we're gonna tell an interesting story involving many countries, many nations. I see here on my notes as well that you speak English, Spanish, Italian, and Portuguese.
That's right.
So would it be possible for you to say hello, Startup Hustle listeners in one of those languages so we can prove that this is true?
The startup part is probably, because it's one of those that I don't even know. Spanish is my first language, and I have to think about what do we call startups?
That's a good point.
Compañía maybe, but pequeña empresa. Yeah, pequeña empresa is what we call it. And Portuguese would be, Italian would be a piccolo empresa. So assuming that's the terminology they use in pequeña.
Well, I'll let
pequeña
you.
Compañía.
I'll let you think about it. And if at any point you want to drop some. Any of those languages on us. So, Liderman, you're the founder of Bluepoint 2.
Yes.
And you guys you have a lot of medical system solutions. I believe that largely related to technical solutions and different stuff like that, document transfer. And that's some of the stuff we want to talk about. But you were recommended because one of our former Startup Hustle guests and friends, Donald Hawkins, has told us that you have quite the story of entrepreneurship, including, it's probably best told by you, but I mean, you've lived in many countries, but I believe we're going to start in Venezuela, right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I guess we can start with Venezuela. And yeah, Don is an unbelievable guy. He and I are become really good friends. We're part of a pipeline entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
So we're on the fellowship program this year. And as we get together and we talk and talk about our businesses and personal matters, I think he's taken quite of an interest in my kind of beginnings probably, but and it's awesome guy and awesome program, by the way, pipeline entrepreneurship. But so yeah, I think the story that he refers to, part of it is probably how I became an entrepreneur. I think I was probably 13, 14 when it started with a orange juice stand in one of the plazas, one of the squares in the city.
And this is in Venezuela? In
Venezuela, in a small town called Acarigua. It's in the middle of the country. It's farm town, and it's a town that it's just two little towns together, about 200,000 to 300,000 people. So not too little, but
it's big enough.
Yeah, big enough.
So here you are, you're 13, and you have an orange juice. Is that what you said? Okay.
Yes. So we noticed, first of all, Venezuela, tropical weather is hot, and we see these orange juices popping up all over. But people would just go and typically, open or do their orange juice stand on a shade in a kind of driving the traffic to you. And then we realized that why don't we just put it right in front of the bus stations when everybody's getting out of the bus and, they're super hot but that required for us to be there, right, on the hot spot too, right? So we did that over one summer. Didn't have a school. So what do? Let's go ahead and do this. So we started doing that and it grew fast. All of a sudden, we have multiple around the city, and we were facing the challenges of being entrepreneurs at the age of 13, 14. How do you manage people? You hire people, you make sure they don't steal from you, and just you add more water to the juice and stuff like that. And you build the tables because you need to save money, so you got to build it on your own, and you got to wake up at 5 a.m. and in the summer day just to go and get all the oranges because they got to be fresh. And, so we learned a lot. Then we went back to school, right? And we now had employees and we had things to take care of, wake up
So
early.
here you are, you're going back to school, you're 14, which is when most people go to high school.
Yeah.
And you guys have employees now.
Yeah.
Okay. With a whole bunch of orange juice stands all over. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was a lot of fun. But we had to wake up early, right? And really early before school. School started, I think it was around 7:15, something like that. So maybe 4:30 or 5:00, just getting the oranges and getting everything set up and driving around town with all the tables and all this stuff and dropping it off and making sure people would show up, right? And if they didn't, then what was the plan, right? Because we had to go to school. So we had to work through that, right? And then we would go back to school, and then right after school, we had to go collect money, make sure people were still there and stuff like that. So that brought a lot of interesting challenges. The other thing that we did at high school, which Donald thinks is super funny, is that we sold condoms.
Okay.
So my friend and I, we bought a huge box of condoms from a distributor. Somehow I don't even remember how we got in touch with this guy, and we just bought everything that he had. Like we'll buy the whole container of condoms, or not a container, but boxes of condoms. And then we did that. We bought them, and then we're like, okay, we're gonna sell it to our friends, right? So we're in high school, right? So we started talking to all the guys. Hey guys, we have condoms, and nobody wanted to buy the condoms. I mean, no friend wanted to buy condoms. I'm like, what the heck? We know you need them, but they they didn't want to, right? So we had to change the strategy. How do we do this? How do we? We had to figure out, why don't they want to buy them? And well, probably they're afraid. Probably they're it's a little. They don't want to admit anything with, to whomever, right? Or they don't want us to talk about it, or whatever it was. So we said, well, what if we talk to the girls? We know who the girlfriends are. So what if we just talk to the girls and let them know that we're selling condoms? And that's all we need to do. Let them know we're selling condoms, and we're doing this for them. It's not for the guys, for them. Of course, the girls were like, what the heck are you talking about? Get out of here. Right? But then the boyfriend would come over and say, hey, so about those condoms. So, they wouldn't say anything to us, the girls, but they would send their boyfriends to, hey, just go buy condoms, right? So we made a pretty good business out of it. And we were really proud to say that there were no pregnancy.
So
in a graduation class.
So at an early age, you find yourself hustling. That's a strange mix. We talk about supply chain management. You're distributing condoms and selling orange juice. I talked to a lot of entrepreneurs, and while I sold different products, I was the same way. Yeah. Growing up, did a lot of different things. So you realize that at an early age that entrepreneurship agreed with you.
Yeah.
Work through some supply chain management problems.
Yes.
All right. So now I'm sensing that you're most of us at that age are now feeling it. We're like, I knew by that age that I was a hustler.
Yeah.
When I just say hustler, I was good at selling things, was entrepreneurial. I was always looking at like, what can I buy? What can I sell? What can I do? What can I market? This and this and that. So that ends up bringing you here.
Yeah.
Later on down the road. So, so you then came from Venezuela to the United States as a college student?
I did. So I think, when you refer to hustler, I think we all are hustlers. The thing is, do we want to face it or not?
I own it. I admit it openly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but a lot of people don't.
Yeah,
right? A lot of but they have it inside themselves. Yeah. It's just sometimes the convenience and the comfort is too great to go ahead and disrupt. And hustlers, like what you referred to, right, is comfort and convenience sometimes is is too difficult to bear. It's just too boring. It's just, so we look for what else, what else can I do that will put me on the edge and will make me figure out what's on the other side of, that edge, or take that turn. But instead of being concerned about what's out there on, around the corner, maybe I won't do it. We just I want to see what's out there. We just go and take that turn, right?
Sure.
So,
well, I compare that to sometimes you jump and then build wings. And you kind of did that. It's funny you talk about selling condoms or whatever. Sometimes it's hard to sell stuff you don't have.
Right.
So sometimes you have to, procure some inventory. You may have gone a little, and no pun intended here, a little deep with the inventory procurement. And back to the induction. So, a lot of people, I don't think a lot of people realize, or maybe they do. So at Full Scale, we employ a lot of people that are not, they're not U.S. citizens. They live in the Philippines. We have an office in Cebu City in the Philippines, and they do a lot of work for a lot of people that are here. And a common question that I get from people or potential clients, they say, well, what if I want to bring these people over here to train with us? And we take that as really being matter of fact, as if that's really easy to do.
Yeah.
And it's not.
It's not.
It's actually really difficult. Like the ability for me to, all right, let's just say a client has a team of 10 people. If they really wanted to bring all 10 of them over here for 2 weeks of training and stuff like that, that's actually pretty difficult.
It's extremely difficult.
It depends on what country you're coming from, and there's different rules and there's different things. And as a U.S. citizen, holding the passport that we hold, we have almost like magical powers.
Yes.
When it comes to being able to enter, exist, function, and do things in foreign countries, but it is not reciprocal.
Correct.
So you first came here from Venezuela as a college student, right?
Correct.
So that was a student visa, a little easier to procure, right?
Still extremely difficult, but actually I came here with a visitor's visa.
Okay.
So I went and applied for the American embassy in Caracas, Venezuela.
Yep.
For a student visa, and they denied the visa.
See, and that's my point exactly.
Yeah.
Like, was there a reason for it, or?
Well, yeah, the reason is, as a student, international student, you typically pay around 3 times more in tuition. And then on top of that, you have to have an account with not just that, but also all the cost of living for a full year. Right.
So depending on where you're going, that might be a lot.
Correct. Exactly.
So, and I'm not completely familiar with the economic differences between the United States and Venezuela, but I'm going to make the assumption it's a lot more expensive here.
Oh, correct. Yes.
So the income that you require in a foreign country to pay your bills and exist and live, like, it's usually not in the same comparison. So being able to accumulate that money,
correct,
to have not only the tuition, but your 12 months of expenses it makes it really difficult unless you're from a wealthy family.
Correct. Exactly. Okay. Exactly. Okay. So you could be very talented, but you don't come from a wealthy family, and then most likely your visa will get denied. Now, that doesn't mean that it should stop you. There are other ways, right, to figure out programs that will sponsor a very smart kid and stuff like that. But at the time I came as so they denied my student visa request, right, which it was like a 6-month process just to get the appointment. Then you bring all your paperwork to the embassy, and you are in line for hours, and finally it's your turn. And this guy just looked into my eyes and says, nah, you just want to stay there and live in the U.S. Denied. I mean, he didn't even ask questions, right, or anything. So I'm completely heartbroken. And he does a big denied on the paper, but he didn't do it on my tourist visa. And then I see an opportunity right there, right? I'm like, okay, this guy denied my student visa and put a big denied on another part of the passport that wasn't on my visitor's visa. So I called the college that I wanted to go to, which I didn't speak any English at the time, zero. So and what I wanted to study first was English as a second language. So, and I wanted to go to New York or LA. Obviously, that was not possible. That was, $100,000 a year, something like that for somebody like me. And I didn't have that kind of money. Selling condoms was good and orange juice was great, but not to that level, right? So I had my savings. I'd been savings for like 3 years, and I told all my friends and family members, I'm going to move. I'm going to leave the country. I see that I need to see the world, and I want to know what it looks like, and I want to put myself on uncomfortable situations and see if I can overcome that. Nobody believed me. Nobody thought that. At the beginning, they thought, oh yeah, sure, good idea, right? But then
I think it my guess would be that a lot of people were saying that.
Yeah.
And they'd say it a lot, and then most of them, it probably never became or becomes a reality.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, imagine Bezos saying, I'm going to build a website where I'm going to sell absolutely everything, and I'm going to disrupt all the markets. And
You're like, sure you are.
Great.
Yeah.
Good luck with that, right? But anyway, so it's similar. Even the people that love you at the beginning, they go, yeah, sure, we want to encourage you, and that's great. Follow your dreams, that's good. But then there's a point where they're like, he's not going to do it, right? And I would hear my parents saying to their friends, he's just not going to go anywhere. We're fine here. He's going to go to college in Valencia, which is where I was raised. And we had an apartment there, and he's just going to be fine. He's going to stay here, right? So that bothered me. So I kept, saving money, working as hard as I could, mowing yards for all my neighbors, still with the other two businesses with my friend. We were selling T-shirts too. We were doing a bunch of things to, for me to get money, I guess. That was my goal. So visa is denied. The request is denied. The tourist visa I had was not denied, which is what he intended to do, but he put the big denied somewhere else. So I called the college here in Kansas City. And by the way, it was Kansas City because a friend of mine, a guy that used to work for my dad, kept saying, hey, I have a friend in Kansas City. He can help you out. I'm like, why would I go to Kansas City? We have plenty of cows here where we live. I'm not going there. But
I lived in Kansas City my whole life, pretty much, and I don't really ever see cows.
I know, exactly, right?
It's a city here. Yeah,
exactly.
I know, it's funny.
A city.
I've had people when I've traveled overseas and they hear Kansas or Kansas City, they're like, so there's cowboys. I'm like, exactly. No, I never see cowboys either. Yeah,
unless you go to those very specific bars.
Yeah, sure. You got to go looking for them.
Yeah, you got to go look at, and it's great, but you don't see, right? But it is the perception.
Yeah, but now you're headed to Kansas City, which, by the way, at the time, I mean, I've talked to a lot of people that have moved to a lot of different places, and it's easier to get to places like Kansas City because it's not the expense that New York has.
Exactly.
And also, there's a big demand in line. Don't they isn't part of it, like they're going to let so many people relocate to New York, LA, or whatever. Like some of the cities are actually easier to get into for purposes of expense, but also that there's not a huge demand or line.
I don't know.
I've actually talked to people in different cities and that have come from other places, and I would say, well, why did you choose here? The line was shorter.
Oh,
so I mean, who knows?
Could be.
Okay, so here now you see a crack and you have an opportunity to make it to Kansas City.
So I show up to Kansas City
with our cowboys and our cows.
Right. I show up to Kansas City with about $2,000, and I pay the first $1,200 to go to college and enroll myself in an English program, English as a second language.
So you came here. You had $2,000.
Yeah.
$2,000 total.
Total.
No job, no income.
No job, no income.
And you came here as a visitor. Okay.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, you were only supposed to stay for so long, right?
You're supposed to stay for 6 months.
Okay, that's actually a long time. That's not okay. So during that time, you did enroll.
Yeah, and I had to figure out what to do and how to extend my stay. Right. So I had to figure out what to do with.
And you also just spent 60% of your available money.
Yeah.
On school.
Correct. So, and I didn't have a car, and I lived in Lenexa, and college was in KCK. And
for those of you not from here, that's about 30 minutes away.
Yeah.
So I had about a 30-minute span
with no public transportation from one place to the
buses.
other.
Yeah.
So I had to figure out transportation too. So I took a taxi the first day. Right, it cost me $45.
I was going to say expensive, yeah.
I think it was $45.
Yeah.
So I show up to the college, at $45 less, right? And I'm like, today, before I go home, first of all, I don't know how I'm going to get back to where I'm staying, right? Because I can't pay another $45. So somebody's going to have to give me a ride. So I'm going to have to convince somebody, figure out who has a car from this place.
And you don't speak English.
I don't speak English. And I show up to the school, right? And they're like, okay, I think the question, well, what's your name? And I said, I'm from Venezuela. And they right away pointed to the classroom number 1. And they're like, okay, you go there. Like the most basic, class. And I'm like, okay, now.
And this is literally like kindergarten English. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. They were teaching me the colors, the numbers, all that. So that's how I started. But then I met a guy there who had a car. I said, hey, could you give me a ride? And he was another entrepreneur. The guy's like, I'll give you a ride today, but do you need me to pick you up tomorrow? Like, that would be awesome.
Amazing.
It's like $30 a week, and I'll pick you up and I'll drop you off.
Right, there you go. So sounds like a pretty good deal.
It was a pretty good deal. Yeah. So right away I solved a problem. I solved it.
I'm assuming this was another Spanish speaking.
Yes.
Okay. So that makes sense for you too. All right.
Yeah. But anyway, so long story short, every single thing was new to me. The first time I saw a person that I knew here in Kansas City from my life, before I moved here, was 2 years later. Every interaction with every person, every street, everything was new to me for 2 years.
And not only that, all right, so you talk about, all right, so when I traveled to the Philippines in Cebu is, I refer to it as being very user-friendly for Americans because all the signs, everything's in English. Now, when I was in Belarus last year, not the case.
Right.
Most people don't speak English. Nothing is written in English unless you're in like the Hilton. So, I mean, and I got a taste of that. Nothing like what you went through, but like my taste was I went to the mall and I walk up and I start talking to someone. They're just looking at me like, basically like, what the fuck did you just say? Because I don't speak English.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. And it like all of a sudden, like, and that was really at that point, and here I am, I'm in my early 40s at this point. That was really the first point in my life where I was ever really somewhere. And I really had the thought, I was like, if I really needed to communicate with someone here, I would have a very difficult time. Now, fortunately, there were enough people still, like a lot of people. English. If you speak English, it's easier to find other people around the world that seem to speak English.
Yeah.
But now if you put yourself in that situation, like I doubt there's many people at all that speak Spanish in Belarus.
Exactly.
It's like a Russian country, but that feeling of kind of like going, wow, I could probably just disappear here and it might take someone a while to find me. And I would imagine that you felt that way most days.
Oh yeah. It's funny that you say that. That's how so later on I found a job. I started working as a busboy at a restaurant here, Classic Cup Cafe on the plaza. Okay. Right. And so I would finish school at 1:00 and I had to get to my job at 4:00. And for that, it took me like 2 hours in public transportation from KCK to the plaza. Or maybe an hour and a half or so.
And by the way, once again, for those of you not in Kansas City, we don't have a very efficient public transportation system, if it even exists.
Everybody has a car.
Everybody has a car, and things are really spread out here. So it's not like, you typically, it's a ways from one point to the next. And then Kansas is split in 2 states. And in Missouri, they have better public transportation than they do in Kansas. And sometimes you got to be in both places. So
exactly. And
not ideal.
And that was my case. I lived in one state, in the state of Kansas, but I worked in the state of Missouri. And the area where I lived in the Kansas side was kind of it was somewhat of a bad area at the time. And I worked at this place, really nice, Country Club Plaza, this restaurant as a busboy. And I worked long hours, and I would get out of there around 10:30, I think. And I had to take the last bus that would drop me off in the downtown of Kansas City, in the Missouri side, and then take the last bus that would take me to Kansas City, Kansas, on the Kansas side. And then I had to walk around, I think like 20, 23 blocks.
Couple miles.
Yeah, in the middle of the night, kind of, and, it was a scary town. And what you're saying, I mean, I could easily disappear here.
Yeah.
That's how I felt every night.
I mean, not to mention, and let's throw the realist part of this is like, I mean, here you are walking around. It's admittedly not the greatest part of town.
Right.
But imagine that you got hassled occasionally. Yeah. What are you doing here?
I know.
What are you up to? I'm just trying to walk home. But if you speak 9 words of English, or I would imagine now, but here's the thing is like you speak 4 languages now. So at some point, you spoke Spanish, but you didn't speak Italian, maybe Portuguese?
No.
Okay, because Portuguese is the native language of Brazil, right?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, so there were a lot of people probably in Venezuela and
no, really.
Those are next door to each other, aren't they?
Yes.
Okay.
So we do have a big population from Portugal.
Yeah.
But they all speak Spanish there.
Right.
So it's not that, I mean, I would hear Portuguese and same thing with Italian. I would hear those languages, but I didn't speak them.
Not common here.
Yeah.
So all right. So, and because like I said, the kind of what we're going with here is trying to give, on Startup Hustle, we're always trying to give you a story or a topic or information. And there's so many entrepreneurs that have come from somewhere else. And, like, hey, here's a reality. Like, I'm a middle-aged white guy that lives in the suburbs. These kind of challenges are not things that I ran into. I've always lived in this, that I've always spoken English. I'm a terrible linguist. I failed Spanish in high school. So bad. But you think about what you're now having to overcome. So at some points along the way, all right, so you have a job and you're in school. How fast did the adoption of the English language occur? And did you use things like your job to try to learn more and accelerate that?
That's exactly right. So that's why I chose Classic Cup Cafe on the Plaza, actually. I chose by, they hired me. But, but I was looking for places where I would be forced to speak English. And I had a little notebook that would fit in my back pocket with a little pencil, and I carried that thing everywhere. And I would ask you questions, and you would tell me something. I would tell you I would ask you to write it down or to tell me how to spell it. And one thing that I found out is that it's innate on humans to be good to others.
Yeah, sure.
If you are asked respectfully.
Yeah.
And that, that was a key to me. If I am good to this person and this person can see that he or she can help me, because and I'm respectful to them, that they will help me out. And in most cases, 99%, 98% of the time, people would do something good for somebody else. So I would do that, and I would carry this little notepad, right? And I would make sure the next time I saw that person knew that I learned from what he or she taught me.
Good way to get to this reminds me a lot. So when I used to live in Colorado, I lived there for 4 years, lived in Durango, and the whole time I worked there, I was a bouncer. So I worked at the door of different bars, but with that, some of these bars had restaurants and different things. And at one of the places, there was I can't even remember where the guy was from, but he was a Spanish speaking, he worked in the kitchen, and he would come up and do kind of like what you're talking about. He would talk to me for a few minutes just here and there, but he was always asking me, something, how do you say this? Or asking just different things. But you saying that, like, he was respectful, and I could tell, like, he just wanted to learn. And I don't know, he just wanted, really in the end, he just wanted to do better for himself.
Right.
And I appreciated that. Like, I haven't thought about that for, a really long time. But he'd come, and sometimes, and occasionally he'd just like have something and he'd be pointing at it.
Yeah, exactly.
You'd say like, I don't know, you say it like this or whatever it was, or and different stuff. But but then the interesting thing is one day he was just gone.
Oh.
He was just gone, and I didn't know where. And I saw one of the other guys I saw him with, that used to see him with regularly, and he had just left. Like he just one day just left. He went back to where he was from. I don't know if that was forced or something else, but he was there and then he wasn't.
Yeah.
So a lot of these guys too that I would work around, and there was a large, and that was Southwest Colorado, which is actually pretty close to Mexico. Like you're one state away. So there was a lot of Latino population, but most of those folks were there working, and they would send all of their money home.
Yes.
I mean, literally like 90% of their money they were sending home too, because it made such a significant difference there. So I wasn't really confused on many levels, like how they were even surviving and paying to get by. So it was definitely a struggle. Okay. So you're learning words.
So I'm learning words.
You're in school.
Yep. Yes, I am.
Now, did you make it? I'm assuming you're moving to studying things other than English at some point.
I did at some point. So then I went to Johnson County Community College here.
But wait a minute.
Go ahead for it.
After 6 months, how'd you end up? We skip that part. I don't want to skip that part. So, because I think that's the interesting part. Because you were here on a visitor pass.
Yes.
Which means you either got a student visa or you just stayed.
Yeah. So
both.
Yeah, or both. Right. So I got, and it was somewhat of both actually. I got what is called an F1 visa.
Mm-hmm.
And the F1 visa is a student visa, but they give you I forgot the number.
So it's easier to get a student visa once you're already a student here, right?
It's somewhat a little, yes.
It's got to be a little bit easier.
It's easier. It's easier. And that's what I have figured out. This guy will deny it, but if the college give me this, and I forgot the F12, I think, which is the form that they fill out requesting or basically saying the school wants this student to study here.
Okay, sure.
Right. So, and then
you have an endorsement.
Yeah, like an endorsement. And then I applied for an extension of my state, which they can grant it. And because I had this F12, they granted it for another 6 months, I think. But by December, I had to go back to Venezuela, and I did. Right. So, so
now you've gone back and you don't know if you're even going to be able to come back.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So I don't even know if I'm going to be able to come back. And I don't remember. I didn't have to go to the embassy. I think because the F12 or I think it's F12, the form. I can't remember right now. But actually, I buy my ticket. I come through Miami. I get, through customs. I'm at customs, and they sent me to this little room. They said, you got to go there, dude. There's something fishy here with your paperwork, right? And so I had the cash to pay for my next semester and part of my living expenses, right? Or most of it, I think.
You were probably, I would imagine you were a little nervous at that point.
Oh, extremely nervous. Extremely nervous. First of all, when I went back to Venezuela, that first year had been so rough, everything new, everything so difficult, so out of my comfort zone, that I really wanted to stay in Venezuela, but I didn't want to let my parents down. But my parents, I thought they were going to say, stay here with us. And they actually said, because they didn't want me to leave the first time, right? They say, oh yeah, I will support you. But honestly, they didn't want to. But then at that time, they were like, okay, you definitely made the right decision. This country is becoming really rough for young people.
So now you're thinking, man, I think I might want to stay here. And they're saying, no, you did the right thing.
You did the right thing. And we go back.
And for purposes of time, we don't have to get into it, but Venezuela's had a lot of instability with not only, I believe, their political leadership, but also just like their economic.
Oh, yeah.
Then they devalued their money at some point. Yes. There's issues with oil and just stuff like that, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. The inflation is in the thousands.
Right.
It's scarcity is humongous, and the struggles are very real. And so when I made the move here was definitely the right time, not knowing that the debacle was coming,
sure.
but it did.
So, but now you're stuck in a room in the Miami airport and probably going, oh shit, am I about to? Right. Are they going to send me right back?
Oh yeah, they were, and that's what they said. You're going back. You want to stay here, and your paperwork is not complete. You should have gone to the embassy and get the F1 visa there, the student visa.
Did they send you back?
And they were going to. And then one guy, kind of the lead custom person, comes to me and says, look at me, look in my eye, look at me in the eye and tell me, what is it really that you want? What do you want to do here? And I said, well, what I really, really want is to finish my English, be able to pass the TOEFL test, which is what you really need to be able to go to college, right? I want to improve my English. That's really my goal. And the guy says, all right, show me all that money you got there. And he does the math and he makes a phone call and he calls the college that day. And somehow they get hold of one of the teachers or something. And the guy asks, is he a good student? Does he show up? Is he really, which by the way, they don't do this. This is not a typical, this guy.
I think normally they just say, they point back in the direction you came from.
Yeah, exactly. And that's it. But this guy.
Because by the way, there's a lot of people that are getting turned away.
Yeah.
And that's actually like when you travel, that's why they're so persistent about, do you have this? Do you have that? Do you have all that? Because these countries don't want you showing up on the shore. And now it's a problem.
Yeah. So
this guy at this point is, and do you even know his name?
No.
But think about it. Like that guy is about to change your life one way or the other.
And he did.
Right.
And he did. And I think of him quite often. And I pray for him. And I think this guy changed my life. Right. He gave me an opportunity. He saw something in me and he went out of his way, because in my head, I also think that this guy somehow thought that I was worth it.
Sure.
I was worth it.
Which is weird, because at that point, like realistically, I mean, I always like I consider myself a realist. There's a reality of everything. Yeah. Guys in those jobs, they're running into a lot of bullshit and a lot of people. There's a lot of people showing up that you're and like it's just, you're just another number.
Yeah.
At that point, and they're trying to do their job. So that at this point, this guy has a gut feeling, or something. Yep. Maybe he senses, like, I don't know, like there's a weird, like you can't really explain the gut,
exactly.
But he clearly sees it. And now, but think about also back to the reality. It's easier for this guy to just point and say, "Go back."
He didn't even have to do anything. The decision
he didn't have to do anything.
Made.
He's calling. It's been made. He's calling colleges, getting a hold of teachers, stuff like that. What do you think? What do you think made him do that?
I think it's what you said. Is that gut feeling by looking at me, and he thought, this guy's different. I think is what he thought. This guy is just different.
But think about the questions he was asking. Is he a good student? Does he show up? He just wants to see if you care.
If I care.
If you're here, if you want. And honestly, that guy's really good at his job.
Yes.
Because he wants to make sure you want to come in for the right reasons. Because let's be realistic, a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
And then a lot of people are full of it. And we'll get to this here in a minute, but that was clearly a good decision, because you've actually become a very successful business person here.
Yeah.
But all right. So he lets you in.
Yeah.
And now what?
He lets me in. Not only lets me in, he approves the visa right there and there in front of me. He's the manager. He's the, whatever it is.
So when he approves that, now how much time do you get? Is that
2 years?
Oh, that's a lot. Okay.
I get 2 years of visa. All I have to do is
Did you cry
study.
Did you cry afterward?
Yes,
I would have.
Yes. I missed my flight, the connecting flight, obviously, and I had to. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm in. I can stay here. I can go back to.
That's a big window compared to like 6 months.
Yes.
I mean, you can get a lot done in 2 years.
Yeah.
Right.
You get a 2-year visa, student visa, right? And you have to, but I think every year you have to get the paperwork that the college has to sign off.
Who cares? You're good.
I'm good.
Yeah.
So I came, right? I'm here. I'm learning English. I jumped in my English classes there were 5 levels, and I jumped from level 1 to level 4 in just 1 year. So because I was studying every day. Yeah. I mean, that's all I was doing.
Well, I think at some point I would imagine that 2-year window also, like, I mean, that removes the having to always think about that. It may have, did it create a feeling of permanence, even though it wasn't? Like you say, hey, I have time. I can do this. Like,
Right.
I don't have to worry in 6 months, I got to do this again. Because you could have actually left and then come back, right? During that 2-year window. Like now
Yeah.
with that approved, like you can travel back and forth between home.
Correct.
And so many people I know that have come from other countries, they're insecure about doing that on some levels because getting back is always the challenge. Like there's so many stories and issues and things that could come up, but now you actually have that green approved stamp, which you don't have to wait in embassy lines and do other crap.
Right. For that period of time. So just to give you an idea, that was 1995 when I came here. It was 1996 when I got that student visa, and it was 2009 when I was able to become citizen. And between 1995 and 2009, I was sent to the little room. I don't know how many times. I mean, so many times, because as you're changing status, it also creates red flags. And then we had 9/11 at one point, and I was a student.
True.
And, they did not renew my student visa because it's 9/11 and all the students are being looked into, very, what the country had to do at that time. Then I'm in limbo. I was picked up at work by immigration one time. Basically, they come over here, handcuff me, you coming with us. And then I had to go in front of a judge and present my case. And I was in deportation removal or whatever process is. I know the immigration law in this country. It's unbelievable.
Imagine,
but I had to go through so much. And then, it's basically you have to leave the country or you can apply here and go in front of a judge and, present your case. And I did, and presented my case. And it took a long time, close to a year, I guess, preparing for my case, in which I couldn't study, I couldn't work, I couldn't do anything here. But I had met, love of my life, my wife, and we were dating, and she's American. And she says, you know what, we'll get through this together. So we did. It was nerve-wracking because if it doesn't get approved, what do we do? I mean, she loved me and I loved her and we wanted to be together. How do we move to another country? What do we do? Right. But anyway, we got through it. But before then, and I know because of time, maybe you want to cover a lot more stuff, but before I met her, when I got my student visa, was going to college, I did it again. I moved to Italy in a very similar way. A little better prepared, paid for an apartment too, with roommates there. And here in the States, I had roommates from all over the world through my time here. My beginnings from South Korea, from Mexico, from Turkey, from Americans, from everywhere, right? Always moving, figuring out, new friends and moving to better area or whatever it could be. But at one point I decided, you know what, I'm going to do this again. And I moved to Italy. And the struggles were very similar. It was the same thing, showing up in the morning to a class and asking me, where are you from? Or what's your name? And I'm responding, I'm from Venezuela, something like that. And they're like, okay, you go to that little classroom right there. You go with the kids. And I did that again in Italy. And then Brazil, I already spoke Portuguese at the time, had already picked it up between here in the States and in Italy. That was a little easier and shorter in term. But then when I came back, I had the struggles of immigration again, with work visa, student visa, and all that. Then got married, and
did that make it easier at that point?
Yes, it did. At that point, made it a lot easier. And now you get into a different process in which, you just need to stay married. Right. And
so you went through the visitor visa process, the student visa process, and
work visa.
There was a gap in there, the work visa process.
Yeah.
At some point, you had to go to court and make your case. Yeah. And at this point, you've been in the country for 15 years.
Close to that.
15 years, right? Yeah. Like, wow. And still dealing with that.
Yeah.
And, you talk about like the political and just general turmoil, like 9/11.
Yeah.
You didn't have anything to do with that, but the ripple effect of some of that stuff comes in, like some of the things too. And like, I don't even know if we have enough time to even get into the Blue Point thing, but this is actually, I think is really interesting because so many, we have a lot of listeners that are international. I looked at some statistics this morning in the last so we've had people listen to this from 176 countries.
Wow, that's amazing.
And in the last month, it was like something like 75. So, I mean, it's still regular that people are listening from all over, but I would imagine that some of them listen because they're curious about like, what do I need to do? I want to go there. I want to do this. I want to do that. And I think that it's important for us, for, being in the United States to also like consider, well, I've never had to contend with any of these things. Well, none of this stuff was ever a challenge for me. And think about how much more difficult it is for some of those that you interact with to get to where, like, okay, you getting to whatever point was way more difficult than it was for me here. Because all these things are distracting, they're expensive, they're time consuming, and then other things too. It's like you just look at little things I think that we take for granted as well, like opening a bank account.
Yeah. Exactly.
Or people are like, what's your social security number? I don't have one.
Yeah, exactly. Stuff like that.
Well, you can't do anything here, sir, unless you have a social security number.
Yeah.
Okay. How do I make that happen?
I know.
And you just like, I mean, and I've gained a little respect for that because, we own a business in the Philippines, but as an American now, we actually experienced like, Matt and I were as we opened our operation in the Philippines, we actually had a bank turn us down for being American. And I got it. I mean, maybe I'm just like spoiled or like used to, but I was, and our employees over there, they came back and they told us that, and I said, excuse me? They said, yeah, they only want X percentage of their accounts to be Americans. Yeah. And I said, what the fuck? Like, for real? Like, my money's the same color? Like, I'm trying to put a lot of it in. And they said, well, we can go back. I said, no, I don't even want to do business at that bank. But that was, here I am once again in my early 40s. That was really the first time that I had experienced that. Since then, I've now participated in opening or operating businesses in Belarus, the United States, the Philippines. But as we consider our own, expansion and the different things that we do, like we looked at things and we're like, okay, we're already in the Philippines. It's way easier to just branch out and expand there than it would be to now open an office in Venezuela, Brazil, Argentina, some of those things that aren't in 13 different time zones.
Right.
No way. But that's interesting. And I think that really what we did here is we you told a story like, and I know we brought you in, we were going to talk about the company you started, and I still want to do that. By the way, you can go to bluepoint2, that's the number 2.com. But I think that this really, like I said, was a really interesting story just to give a little bit of perspective about, like I said, it's easy to look at people that have art that you're like, oh, wow, that guy did great. And he's not from here. They're like, whoa, but like for real, it's almost like you need a multiplier on that success factor because the amount of bullshit and hurdles and obstacles and things you have to climb over. And you just even talk about other things too, like coming here, $2,000, 1,200 of it goes to, 1,200 of it goes to school, 50 of it goes to a cab ride to school. Now you're down to $750. Think about that. Like you don't speak the language. You had a place to live at that point. I'm assuming just like being a roommate or someone.
I had a place to stay, and
no job, no income.
No job. Yeah, and I had to pay this guy. I can't remember now if it was like $400 a month. He was charging me to sleep on his couch.
You're broke. You're broke the moment you got here. Then, and like I think that we talk about being bootstrapped.
Yeah.
That's pretty much the story of it. So, and we don't have enough time to get too far into it, but really the way that this resolves is, you've done a lot of really interesting things. You've worked for You've been successful in designing, managing, building, scaling different technical solutions and sales operations for Fortune 500 companies, mid-sized startups in the Middle East, Europe, Latin America, here in the US, and, just like continuing to do that. And now at Blue Point 2, you're creating technical and medical innovations that you want to give us a couple minutes about what you're doing there and where did all this end up coming to?
Yeah, definitely. So great. It's so I worked for at one point. Finally, I was able to get into. I worked for multiple companies here in Kansas City, but DST Systems, Lockline, which part of Lockton at the time, and then I found a job at Cerner, and with that, I think I developed a lot of respect and also a lot of desire to really work in healthcare. So I worked at Cerner for about 8 years, 8 years, and I grew my career very fast at Cerner. Every year I was getting promoted almost. But it was a wonderful career and great time. Some of my really good friends that are still my good friends is from my time at Cerner. So I have a lot to thank Cerner for. And then I went and worked for other companies, but I always knew that at some point I have to do my own thing. And I felt that everything that I had been doing in my life and all the challenges and all the good things were training me for that moment when I could take a leap of faith and say, I'm going to leave the comfort of a good company and a good path to, that VP level, director level, that executive level, and I need to do my own thing. And so in order just to get to Blue Point 2, let's start with the name Blue Point number 2, right? When you open your map on your phone, right, and you click on just to see where you are, you're going to see a blue point. That's where you are. Now, the interesting thing is, what else? Where are you going to go to now? What is it that you're going to do? And what we want to do is, with Blue Point 2 on the medical field, is whatever that next appointment is, whatever it is that that care you need, we want to provide absolutely everything you need to be informed and ready, and share that with the provider so they can also be informed and ready for you and take care of you. So from the forms, from the location that you need to go to, from the instructions of what you need to do, medications you need to stop, how you prepare for your appointment, videos you need to watch, all of it, the transportation and so forth. So that's what we coordinate, and we coordinate that by leveraging other companies or working with other companies as partners. Some of them are in the medical field, like Cerner. We have a good relationship with Cerner. Uber Health, if you need a ride and you have to get to your appointment, but you don't have a ride and your appointment is a surgery, let's say, how do you get there, right? For the hospital wants to make sure you show up, right? So the hospital gladly will pay for that Uber ride just to get you there. From the transactional aspect, how do we transact your payments? How do we make sure you are aware of your financial responsibilities, and that you can request a payment plan if you need to from our application. So that's what we have built. Part of what we have built with Blue Point 2 and our software Viewpoint at this moment, but it wasn't easy to get there, right? Like you were saying, it's always rocky, right? So everything started when one day I decided, okay, I'm quitting my job. I was working for a company out of San Diego, and I'm going to start my own thing. So I'm running around my neighborhood, and I took a long run, probably 6-8 miles, I don't know, and I'm exhausted at the end. And all of a sudden, an idea popped in my head. Oh my God, I can do this, and this would be a great software, right? So I get home and I get on a whiteboard that I have there, and I worked until like midnight. And then I wake up early and I go and meet a friend who owns a company, is a brilliant architect. And I say, hey, I have an idea. Help me out with this. And we worked from like 8 a.m. until like 8 p.m., just he and I on this room in front of this whiteboard designing this solution. And we figured it out. We figured out exactly what we needed to do, how it would work. And then, I start putting the marketing behind it, start developing the solution. And we basically develop almost to fullness this solution. And now I take it to the market, right? And I go to the end users and I say, would you use this? Would you like this? And they all say, yes. And I love it. And that's exactly what we need. And I'm like, perfect. We are after something really good here. Now, could you buy it? And they say, well, I can't buy it.
We love it, but we don't want to pay for it. Right?
Well, my boss's boss is the one that needs to buy it. So, but I can make the introduction and tell him that I really want this. Oh, that's great. And then short after, I found out that the people that care couldn't buy it, and the people that could buy it didn't care about it.
Yeah, that's not uncommon.
Exactly. But I had already developed a solution.
That's the sales problem. You got to figure it out.
And I wanted to sell it for $100,000 subscription a year, right? And a friend of mine who's a CIO at a hospital in the West Coast said he'll buy it, but only if I could do it within his discrete budget or discretional budget. And I say, okay, let's do it because I just need people to start using this. What's your discretional budget? It says $5,000. I'm like, okay, let's put $4,990. And it says, deal. Send it to me. I'll sign it. I send it to him. He calls me and says, I'm so sorry, Liderman, I can't sign this. I know that it's within the discretional budget, and I told you, but I really don't want this.
Wow.
I know my users say that they want it, but that's why I have them. They can do this. I don't have to pay and automate this piece. So I did what any human being would do, right? And that was on a Friday night. I was flying out from Baltimore, I remember, at the airport in Baltimore. And I get home completely heartbroken and, think about it all night on Friday, all day on Saturday. What am I going to do now? Sunday night, I get a bottle of wine, sit on my patio, had the whole bottle of wine to myself, had some tears. And I said, tomorrow's another day. I have to reinvent myself again. All this software, I'm going to shelve it tomorrow, and I don't talk about it tomorrow. Tomorrow is I got to figure out the next idea. I got to work on the next thing, and that's it. Showed up, talked to the developers on Monday morning and said, you know what, thank you so much, but we're done. We're done with this software. I have to go and figure something else out. And talk to my partner, at that time, that they helped me architect this solution and say, we're done. This is not going to go anywhere. I have to go and figure out what's next. So I started doing services for hospital, and this approach was different. The next approach was, instead of me coming up with an idea, I'm going to let people tell me what it is that they need. And I'm going to interrogate them. So I started working for hospitals. I would walk the floors with the nurses, doctors, and I would do services that they would pay for in order for me to, my knowledge basically in healthcare, right? And through that, I would learn from them. What is it that you really need? What is it that would be very helpful? And how would you be able to purchase something like that? Would you have signature power on that or not? And how are the electronic medical records going to take that? Are they going to see like competitors or these other companies? And, what products exist today? And I started just doing that process, right? A very lengthy process, although it was expensive, but I was getting paid for my services to be in these conversations with these, decision makers at the hospital levels. So I did that for quite some time until I figured out, okay, here is a good problem to solve, and what I described as viewpoint. But now I need to go and see, is this a problem that everybody has? And then you have to see, where is the market going? And there's a lot of guessing there, right? What's going to happen? At the time, the Affordable Care Act had just signed. Is this going to the rollout of meaningful use, which is part of what dollars were injected into healthcare for technology. Is it going to affect this and so forth? So then you go through the regular process of figuring out, do you have something that the market wants, right? But it was different. At least I had a problem based on do they want this? But now me developing something to then realize that the market didn't want it, right? I had not developed anything yet, but I was talking to healthcare providers out there and about this solution, and that's what we did. And then we started just looking for organizations that would buy pieces of it. Okay, so out of everything that we do here, would you pay for the payment processing app, or the transportation app, or the forms app, or the texting communication with the patient and so forth? And that's how we started funding our development. It has taken longer, right? But we haven't taken a penny from anybody.
Right.
So it's all growing organically, and lots of it has been my own money, and lots of it has been, or most of it has been, clients paying for the solution. So it's always that validation process that never ends, right? That even when you have 50 clients now, okay, how do I get to 250? And then things in many cases have to change. You're validating your application, you're validating who those new clients will be, and you're adapting and morphing into what the market expects or wants. So that validation process never ends, and it has never ended for us. But yes, we're building something really neat. We have some good clients. We keep getting more contracts and better contracts, and we grow our team very gradually, right? We don't want to grow up too fast when it comes to head count and expenses, right? We want to keep everything in check because we're still validating. The market is telling us, yeah, we like what you have, but show us more. And we want to make sure that we show more before we put more money into it. But
and if you guys want to, if you listening want to go check out what Liderman and Bluepoint 2 does, you can go to Bluepoint, it's the number 2.com. Liderman, thank you for coming in and telling us this interesting story. I mean, like I said, for those listening, it's just such a different reality to import hustle here into the States. So if you get a chance, you can always check us out on Instagram. We are at Startup Hustle Podcast. Liderman, thanks again for coming in.
Matt, and thank you so much.
And we're gonna keep up with the progress of Bluepoint 2. See you next time.